I met him in a swamp down in Dagobah, where it bubbles all the time like a giant carbonated soda. S-O-D-A soda.
All right, Matt, we've got a very exciting guest on the show today. Would you like to introduce the TikTok star that we have on the show today?
That's right. It is, we are honored to have, normally my boss, but now he's in my world, which is very exciting for me. Brendan from the band Wheatus.
Oh my goodness! Hello.
Thank you for joining us, Brendan.
Thank you for having me on, Matthew. What a thing.
Yeah, it's great. I'm very for a very important episode of this show. This is a major song in Al's career here.
Well, honestly, I'm a little nervous about that, to be honest.
Well, but I want to talk about something before we even get into Yoda.
Yeah.
Okay. Right? Because when Matthew and I created this podcast,
Yes.
our concept was like, all right, we're just going to record the self-titled record because no one could possibly have a song that they want to talk about on that self-titled record. Then Wheatus plays like 25 minutes from my house. I go to meet Matthew in person for the first time, and I'm talking to you outside, and I'm like, we got to get you on the show. Like, do you know what songs you want to talk about? And you named like 3 songs on the self-titled record that we had already recorded.
I'm old.
But even old, Brendan, that record was not a hit. Like you were really,
I know.
You said it was you and your brother who were really into the first record.
It's hard to even pinpoint where Al came into my life because I don't have memories that go that far back. It's like that.
Definitely get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so but this particular song that we're about to discuss, if you'd like me to get into it, I do actually have the most vivid visual time and place memory on this one.
Oh, yeah?
Really?
Let's do it. Absolutely. I love that.
Where I heard it the first time, and what the circumstances were, and so on. So, record came out in 1985, and that was the year when I started 1985 as a 9-year-old and turned 10.
We've talked before on this show that a 10-year-old boy usually has a major Al moment.
Yeah. So my brother...
That's a real thing.
Yeah, it is a very... So my brother is 2 years younger than me. He's 8. And we were already playing drums and guitar together, right? This is how I know, because we were downstairs and I had taught myself how to play, I think, Money for Nothing. I can't remember if it was Money for Nothing or it might have been a Jimi Hendrix song like Foxy Lady or something. I had just taught myself how to play some riff. My dad had this drum kit in the basement that was really beat up that my brother was doing his lessons on or like learning on. This beat up old Ludwig kit with like, it was too loud. My grandmother said it was too loud, so there were socks on it. Like dirty socks like stretched across the heads, right?
Perfect.
And yeah. And a sock on the hi-hat and like socks on the cymbals.
That feels like something you'd still do now.
Probably. And and we had this little realistic boombox in the corner. And before, I'm trying to get my brother to do this, and I'm saying, just play this, like this thing, right? And like I said, I can't remember if it was Foxy Lady or Money for Nothing, but it was one of the two. And he's ignoring me. And he's rewinding a cassette tape on the Radio Shack realistic stereo boombox that had like 2 4-inch speakers or 2 3-inch speakers in it. It was a little one tape deck. And he's like, he's rewinding, he's totally ignoring me. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I'm playing this thing, and he's like just sitting there with his sticks in his hand, and he is playing snippets of this record to try and find Yoda because he had just gotten into it himself. And he finds it and he plays it. And, I recognize the Kinks song, but if I'm being perfectly honest, I probably didn't recognize it as a Kinks song. I probably just knew that.
I was just going to ask, if you recognized it at all, that's kind of impressive that, the number of stories, as you would guess, of people who heard the Al song first and didn't realize it was a parody. Yeah.
But my
dad was a big hit.
Driving around, my dad listened to a lot of rock radio. So wherever he could find it.
Sure.
And cassette tapes and things. So I had heard that song,
Yeah.
but I didn't know it was the Kinks. I didn't know who the Kinks were really. You know, not really. And it's about Yoda. Like the opening line is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because, and this is where it gets. This is why it's not just a Weird Al song, right? It's impossible to convey what Star Wars meant in 1985 to people who were our age. We had seen Jedi in the theater, right? A few years earlier, 1983. Maybe, and it ran, this is another thing that doesn't really happen anymore. Jedi ran in theaters for like 2 years, right?
Yeah.
It was,
at that point, they would, if people kept going, they would just keep it in the theater forever.
right. It was on 2 or 3 screens at the Comac Cinema,
Yeah.
and it finally got to downtown Northport, which got movies like like a year later after they came out. And so we were in the ritual of seeing Jedi.
Yeah.
And this was the culmination of all of what Yoda taught Luke, right? So it was like, it couldn't have been more. It was like experiencing another Star Wars. It was like oh my God, like there's, he's telling us something about, wow, okay, this is from another perspective. Yeah. So it was. I instantly forgot about whatever I was obsessed about doing.
Yeah.
And we just sat there in the basement and listened to that, then rewound it and listened to it again, then again, trying to figure out. I remember trying to figure out the lyrics to the bridge, because they're a little bit rocks, like we weren't sure what he was saying.
Yeah.
So I have to. This is the point where I have to interject and just say I am a diehard Star Wars fan. That is a movie that holds a lot of importance to me because my dad and I didn't really agree on a lot of things, but Star Wars was like our bonding glue as a kid. So like it was a Friday night and he wasn't working. 9 times out of 10 we would watch Star Wars because that was the movie that we both always wanted to watch. So there is a video that someone uploaded that is this song told in scenes from Star Wars, and at a specific line I actually started crying because I was like, this, as goofy as this song is and as goofy as these lyrics can get, it also, in that bridge that you're talking about, the like, I used the Force, I picked up a box, I lifted some rocks, and while I stood on my head, I won't forget what Yoda said. He said, Luke, stay away from the darker side, and if you start to go astray, let your Force be your guide. Like, that sums up what is the entire ethos of the entire Star Wars franchise in this dumb
pretty much
parody.
And for some people, maybe you can relate, it's the only positive interaction they have with a parent. It's like it stands as a singular moment that way. If I could unfold that a little bit, this was 1985, right? So Back to the Future was about to hit, and Star Wars was pristine.
Yeah.
Right? It had yet to be
Sullied.
edited. Yeah. Like it was unassailably the constant, the bar for like magnificent space movies that have an ethical tale to them and are righteous, right?
Yeah.
And it, like Han did definitely shoot first, and we all knew that. That, like, there's
he was a drug dealer. We figured that out real quickly.
Exactly. He's a hustler, man. He's a total pimp. It was just, it had light and dark in characters.
Yeah.
And, that was like part of, I don't know, like part of learning narratives was like, people are good and bad, and then they have a choice to make and all this stuff. And, and the biggest deal of that was at the end of Jedi. I know that Yoda is primarily kind of focused on The Empire Strikes Back, right? It's obviously he has to start over as a Jedi. He finds the only other Jedi in the universe, and he begins to train besides his dad. But if I could just spread it out a little bit, we already knew the continuum. Everybody saw those 3 films as one piece.
Sure.
Right? So talking about moral choices illustrated in the bridge, Vader is silent in the original cut when he's watching the Emperor kill Luke. Dead silent. He doesn't make a sound. It's just his silent helmet sort of like tacking back and forth for a few cuts of the film, and then he lunges. And I'm starting to cry about it right now. Like, the fucking audience went crazy. I mean, people just stood up in their chairs like, oh my God. Like, it was involuntary. It wasn't a cheer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was like, throw him down the fucking well. It's just like, people were just like so emotionally invested in like, you're definitely not going to watch him kill your kid. We know that. Come on. Oh, fuck yeah. You know?
I love that.
I mean, so if we like, we'll go back a moment now because this is a great opportunity to talk about the fact that Al originally wrote and recorded this in 1980 when Empire was in theaters.
Right.
And he performed it on Dr. Demento. He was, I'm going to guess, 20 years old.
Yeah, this was one of his Porto studio recordings,
and
which it's the best sounding Porto studio
there's
song
a
he's
demo
ever
recording of this song that's out there on YouTube you can listen to. That's just Al alone. Al with his friend doing the hand fart accompaniment.
And some weird sound effects.
From
They're doing
Dr.
like a
Demento, and some
Yoda
odd sound
impression.
effects in there, yeah. But it sounds great. It played on Dr. Demento.
I met him in a swamp down in Dagobah, where it bubbles all the time like a giant carbonated soda. S-O-D-A soda. I saw the little runt sitting there on a log. I asked him his name and in a raspy voice he said Yoda. Y-O-D-A Yoda.
This is early on, and poor young Al could have never imagined how difficult it would be to release this song in securing the rights from both the Kinks and George Lucas. Like,
I mean,
you know, like he just didn't know that all of this was going to have to happen to make this song occur, and this took him 5 years to release because of rights issues.
We might be in the only iteration of the multiverse where it actually happened.
And
100%.
You're going to love this, Brendan. And the only reason why this song came out at all is because initially they got through all of the stuff with Lucas. Lucas approved it. Then he reached out to the Kinks management, and they said no. Ugh. And in a random chance encounter, this has happened to Al a few times, he ran into Ray Davies somewhere.
How did he do that in the 80s?
I don't know. He must have been at the right place, right time. Ran into Ray Davies, asked him what issue he had with the track, and Ray Davies was like, I had no idea that this was... I don't know what you're talking about. No one ever played me this.
Surprise.
And then he just played him the track, and that was it.
So yeah, that's the only reason why this song exists, is that Al ran into Ray Davies, asked him why he said no, and Ray Davies said, I don't know what you're talking about. Al played him the track, Ray approved it, and this song came out in 1985 following years of legal... I mean, we were very, very close to having this song just not come out at all. But I think what's the most interesting and amazing to think, something that comes up on the show a lot, is he did this in 1980 when Empire was still new. I mean, obviously it was huge. There's no denying that it was immediately huge, but Al's ability to correctly call pop culture mega moments, like, I don't think in 1980 anyone could have yet predicted that that Star Wars would still be moving people to tears to talk about. You know what I mean? Like,
or forget about that. Now. It's a literal prediction.
Yeah.
The song is a literal prediction.
We got to get into the lyrics of the song.
Mark Hamill's
are so prescient. It is stunning.
Yeah, that video that I was talking about, they may show footage from Last Jedi during
it is staggering to think about how much he nailed it on this. It's wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I do want to bring up this one thing that I did read about the writing of the song, because technically this is another sort of like a Madonna situation where someone else told him to do the parody. He said after the success of the movie, he was toying around with the idea of writing a song about the breakout character, but could not think of a suitable song to use for the parody. He goes, I was at college at the time, and then my friend Mike just said, why not do it to Lola? And he said, I couldn't believe I hadn't thought of that of myself since I was such a huge Kinks fan.
So, yeah, well, along that tip, I'm not as familiar with the newer Star Wars movies or their names.
That's fair. But it's become harder.
Yeah, but I know that there is that weird scene where he drinks milk out of some creature's breast.
That is Last Jedi.
Okay, Last Jedi. So, is that a bit of a nod to Lola?
It could be, actually.
Like, is that did they get that one? Was that just everyone thought
That's
that
an
was
interesting
like
thought, Brendan, because
completely around the twist strange, but maybe.
You know what? I feel like if any other director had made that movie, I'd be like, no. But that's the one that Rian Johnson made.
Ryan
Yeah.
Johnson.
Ryan Johnson,
maybe.
and that dude's pop culture palette is so deep that I'm
think-
sure
you
it's
might be
possible.
right. That's a
I think we're looking at an Easter egg. I mean, he's like and if I could get a little blue for a second.
Oh yeah,
He
by all
can't-
means.
he can't
like that
put-
milk.
Yeah, he can't put oral sex in a Star Wars movie.
That's harder to pull off.
That's way hard. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But but the bizarreness and the out of context ness of that
Yeah.
moment make me think that there's just maybe he's just like, I have to nod to Yoda.
Yeah.
By
Well,
Weird
so
Al
and
in
that's
this.
now also a great segue for us to briefly talk about the original song Lola by the Kinks, which came out in 1970. So for Al, this is kind of old. Generally speaking, with a few exceptions throughout the years, he mostly parodies songs that are very current in the moment. And at the time he does this, even the first demo, this song's 10 years old. So this was already kind of cemented as something of a classic. I guess people still knew it and really liked it. So it was a good choice in that respect. But the original Kinks song, I mean, this song is a masterpiece. This is like, and lyrically, I mean, we've talked about this before, Brendan, funny enough, before this podcast came up. Like, this song is kind of astonishingly progressive for 1970 to write a song about a transgender community situation that's very accepting and open and not judgmental at a time where to get that into a pop song and make a hit of it in 1970 is really very impressive.
Yeah, I don't want to make assumptions, but it always, the times I've listened to it in depth, I always kind of thought it was about a hetero / transsexual relationship that's sort of burgeoning, and there's insecurity there,
Yeah.
but there's also like a certainty of like attraction, and still it's like it's moving forward. And Old Soho, where I assume we're talking about London.
Yeah.
But we could also be talking about downtown New York in the 70s.
It's possible,
and, after a New York Dolls show or something. And, that information when you're 10 years old is inaccessible, right? Just because conceptually it's a little too... Oh, actually, I should say when you're 8 or 9 or 10 years old in 1985.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That information is like just out of your grasp. So... in case anybody's wondering why, they just didn't teach kids things about that back then at all.
No.
As you grow older, you find out things, and then you have this memory of this song that is Al has given us this duality of purpose with the track, right? It's like this fond, goofy memory about this ubiquitous thing that literally overtook the entire nation, and it's modeled on. Parodied on a song that is arguably about one of the most obscure at the time, especially in the 70s, identity relationship issues that there was.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like he's really like tying the room together with this shit,
Oh, yeah.
In ways that are like multi-generational, multi-identifiable, and what is Yoda? Like, do we know what? we don't know if Yoda is a male or female.
No, yeah, that's
neither.
true. That's true. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that as well. You're right. There's some element of that, but just, I mean, yeah, in terms of like the Kinks track, I think they keep it in the original song. It's definitely left to be very open to interpretation. You're not Lola, but the other character of the song. At the end of it, I think you get the sense that even they're not totally sure who Lola is or how Lola identifies, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because
We
they
don't
just
care.
fell for this person regardless. I mean, the lyric in this song, girls will be boys and boys will be girls. It's a mixed up, muddled up, shook up world. In 1970, that is a wild sentiment to put into a radio pop song. That I give a tremendous amount of credit for that. That is really impressive.
It's crazy. And it's further afield than Bowie.
Yeah. And knowing what we know about Al, it's not a surprise to me that he was drawn to this for the subject matter of the song, and just because it is just a flawless pop song.
100%.
Totally flawless.
Yeah.
I want to also talk about, because you did mention, like, at the time that he did the 1980 version, the song was already a decade old. And that's kind of where the weirdness of Yoda comes out, because this has to be, without competition, the most famous Weird Al song that was not a single and had no music video.
Yeah.
It's his...
I actually had to check that, Matt, because I guess I knew that, and I still had to double check myself, because it seems impossible to me that this was not a single.
So Al said that he just always considered it a cool song for the album, but he never considered it a single because of the gap in 1985 to when Empire and the original song had come out. That he thought it was too outdated. And then this answers a lot of questions of something we discussed on last week's episode. But he said also the fact that a majority of the album's video budget just went to the Like a Surgeon parody meant that making a video for Yoda would be kind of not feasible.
It probably would have been a very expensive video. You can definitely tell on these early albums that like the label was like, you can make one video, and then the next video is going to be 5 people standing in a room with nothing. Just lip syncing a song because there's just no extra money.
Yeah, I think we predicted the 1 more minute video cost about $100.
Yeah, it seems like they did it between sound check and showtime at a venue.
Yeah. There are a few more hiccups with making a video for Yoda.
Oh, more rights issues, right? Yeah,
more rights issues. Second of all, then you're talking about the image and likeness of Lucas's toy characters.
Oh yeah.
Oh
right.
Yeah. So Kerner's getting involved at that point, or Kenner's getting involved at that point. And...
Yeah, and also, how the fuck do you make a Star Wars video in 1985? Like that, the budget, like
George
the
Lucas
special
would have had to direct it.
Yeah, Lucas was at the cutting edge of what could be done on celluloid at the time in terms of effects, and it's like, man, like I'm not sure. I mean, you hire the people who made Tron, maybe. I don't know how you even get it done. Like it's puppets, it's Frank Oz, it's like
he probably realized like to do something Star Wars, he would have, in order to do it properly, it would have been impossibly expensive. I mean, obviously he could have done something cheaper, but then
it wouldn't have worked.
It would have been dangerously close to him mocking the property, I think, probably, if he didn't do it like 100% all in, which we know he's very cautious to not ever do that. Like it's all done with like love and respect.
Yeah. And also, did he really want, like, he'd gotten so far with the luck streak on that song.
Yeah.
You know, did he really want to, like,
he didn't want to push the issue? Like, as soon as he got everyone to sign, he was like, just record it and then don't say anything.
Stop. And he frankly didn't need to, because the ubiquity of the Star Wars franchise at the time was so just overwhelming.
And that's the kind of awesome thing about it. It was like, because of Star Wars being what it is, what it was then, what it remains, like, it did a lot of the work for him. I mean, again, this is a fantastic parody, but the enduring appeal of Star Wars has kept this song. This song has remained, generally speaking, his show closer almost without exception since it came out.
Yeah.
He's changed it 1 or 2 times, but for the most part, he has ended every show since this record with this song.
Which that's a whole other. We're going to get into the live.
I know there's a whole other.
But let's talk about lyrics for a little bit first before we get into that.
Yeah, I have them printed out right here in front of me.
I mean, are there any standout lyrics? I know we already kind of talked about that bridge part. Which
the
is
bridge of this song, oh my God. And again, this is
so
almost
good.
just back to the Kinks version, but the bridge of this song is maybe one of my favorite like pieces of music. One of the best bridges in a song. Those chord changes and the way that, I mean, it's just such a great piece of music. I mean, I guess the real thing I want to talk about is towards the end, which are the big like foreshadowing lines. But because the first half or most of the song is really almost just like covering, you know, the plot points of the movie.
So I've always considered, in a broader sense, outside this song or anything, Weird Al to be a sort of an Andy Warhol character, right? He's conducting this grand. It's all a giant performance statement about commerce and ubiquity and trends and fads and style and all of that. And he's constantly perfecting the art of taking this thing that somebody has made that everybody has decided is fantastic and deconstructing it and challenging you to not like it, and knowing full well that if he does it right, destroying it is just like an impossible thing. Like it can't be deconstructed. He's kind of like showing you, like, look how ridiculous I made this. I met him in a swamp down in Dagobah. Like, what? like we've all been to Dagobah, right? Like down in those swamps. Like, and it's like his injection of the preposterous into these magnificent things that we all cherish, right? Is this ongoing experiment in, like, can a Campbell's soup can be something you don't like? No, not really. Like, we're past that point, and he's doing that all the time. He's always doing that. And so when he segues from this triumphant, like, you could cry during this bridge.
Oh yeah.
And then
I did today.
Yeah, today, this very day, grown adults cried for this bridge. And then the soft landing is this, like, admission of the commerce of the entire thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That you also don't mind. Like, you're like, yeah, I hope Luke is always Luke, and you right through the fourth wall, right into the contract, like right into the lawyer's office in the fine print, from this triumphant, transcendent, imaginative moment of glory, right through down the gutter to the lawyer's office.
Yeah.
And you're fine with that journey, which is the longest journey there is. And he knows it. That's the thing. At this point, he knows how that is more important to him than it was in 1980, because he's gone through the bullshit of having
I totally agree. Those lyrics were there in 1980, but yes, I think they definitely must have felt all the more appropriate
when he did the final take. He must have got choked up
through it all. Yeah, he finally got through all of the red tape and all of the nonsense to be able to record this. It is a brilliant, like, celebration of the art form while also acknowledging just the nature of art in a capitalist country.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest, I did not think of it through this lens because I've known this song for basically my entire life. And only today, listening to it again, did I actually think about the long-term contract I had to sign says I'll be making these movies till the end of time. Thinking of that now through the lens of actually using CGI hologram versions of Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
Suddenly just exploded my brain, and I was like, oh my God. Not the end of my life, the end of time.
The end of time. And, a long time ago in a galaxy far away. Like, it
is a chilling thing to think about that he saw that in 1980, and now here we are in 2022, and the same people are still alive or dead making these movies.
Well, this is the Andy Warhol thing. This is
amazing.
Yeah, he's like you're wrapped up in this moment of commerce, and you're compelled to spend this dollar that it took you so long to get on this thing, and then also I'm gonna segue right now into the infinite. Like, it's Zen and this Zen thought that's just like, one day you'll be watching Luke suck milk out of some creature's nipple. Trust me.
Yeah, but it's also, I guess that's the other thing that I wasn't even thinking about, like, because I've only experienced this song from the perspective of a kid who, like, obsessively watched the original trilogy and, like, was just a year or two away from them announcing the prequels. But, like, to walk out of a theater in 1980 from having essentially just seen part 2 of a newish franchise.
Yeah.
And being like, yep, this is going to be like James Bond, where they're just going to keep cranking these things out for decades. Because there wasn't really, I'm trying to think of, like, the 50s and the 60s.
Not a ton of precedent for franchises like this back then.
No way.
Not like, even like the Universal Monsters got like 4 movies tops, and then they'd be like, oh, no one's seeing these, and they would just stop making.
And that's the thing. Again, not to say, like, obviously these movies were huge from the jump, but still having the foresight in 1980 to know that they were going to have this kind of longevity is really, really impressive, because it's not like there was much precedent for something like this in cinema.
to your point, I didn't see A New Hope in theaters. I was too young.
Yeah.
I did see Empire in theaters.
Mm.
And that one had the adults, like, because that was like, oh, this is a real thing now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, because it was this noir, you know, sort of failure piece, and it was like, it ended sadly, and I think that the kids were a little bit like, what was that all about? But the adults were like, I can't believe they're this is like, I'm in now, you know.
No, yeah, Empire is really the one that made it. If Empire Strikes Back is not as good a movie, we are probably not talking about any of this right now. Like, Star Wars doesn't exist the way that it currently does. Like, Empire had to be the movie that it was to keep this going the way that it has.
That's the thing that's kind of sad about the whole story of Star Wars when you really look at it, though, is that, like, imagine that movie written and directed by George Lucas. You know what I mean? Like, that movie is essentially like story by George Lucas and produced by him, but someone else wrote it, someone else directed it. And, like, knowing what the prequels are and what A New Hope was, I'm like, he probably wouldn't have. The franchise would have died.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
It would have died a slow death.
George Lucas is so interesting because, and I'm not a Star Wars expert. I feel like both of you know way more about Star Wars than I do, but my understanding is that, I mean, he is, no disrespect, he is a genius for creating this world that he created. But as a filmmaker, I think he was very smart to realize that other people were way better at that than he was.
Yeah.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Hi, friends. The world got you down. Don't be sad. Listen to $2 Late Fee with Zach and Dustin.
$2 Late Fee is the podcast that celebrates the best decade of entertainment, the 1980s. We pick a movie and soundtrack from our youth that we loved and see if it holds up today. We also interview your favorite celebrities from that era.
All in the spirit of positivity and togetherness. Check us out at $2latefee.com.
You know, that generation of filmmakers in the 70s, we're talking about Coppola, we're talking about, you know, Spielberg. It was them taking Hollywood back from, you know, Elvis movies on the beach and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
there's a place for those for sure, but
it was a revolution. It was a legit revolution. Like, you know, Jaws doesn't get made with those almost like how Mark Twain reinvented language. Now you have this like former retired New York police chief guy who's in Amity Island, and it's all the culture is there on display in a way that it was never on display earlier in Hollywood. And, you know, Star Wars is the comic book fantasy wave of that, which is fantastic. And I think that the only problem is that when they got to a place when technology caught up with the kind of movie he wanted to make, he didn't then hand it over to somebody who made good technology movies at the time. You know, because like, why do you think you know how to do this? Your last time you messed around with these systems was, you know, in 1983. Like, you know, and Industrial Light and Magic is arguably the company that made a lot of technology movies possible. But like, The Matrix came on after that and made the new Star Wars movies look like a joke.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
So, like, I mean, that said, the best saber fight is Darth Maul and
it's
Qui-Gon.
incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. But it's like that, I mean, everything else, I'm just kind of like, ooh, seems like you tried to put all three of the first three successful films into every scene. Like, there's there's a Jedi moment, there's an Empire moment, there's a New Hope moment. Okay, we're resetting the clock. It's the next scene. We're doing, you know, and it just befuddled me. But
it's why I wish I could see the Topher Grace cut of the prequels. Like,
I did not know this.
Topher Grace
what are you
wants
talking
to be
about?
he wants to be a director and editor and stuff like that. And one of the projects that he does for himself is he'll take trilogies that he thinks could be better if they were more concise, and he'll re-edit them. And he apparently took all three prequels and re-edited it into a 2.5-hour movie that just focuses on Anakin Skywalker's story and did like a special screening in LA, and people were like, yo, if that was what George Lucas released, it would have been a really good movie. Like,
Seriously?
like, get rid of like the tax stuff, get rid of the government and stuff. Just tell the story of Anakin being corrupted by the Empire. And,
Yeah.
like, that's
See, this
the
is
story.
amazing. Like again, like I said, I'm not that up on Star Wars. The fact that you just talked about the Topher Grace cut is like
I had no
in
idea
a million
that
years. I never would have thought
that needs to be
that's
celebrated.
out of control. So is that anywhere in the world, or was that just like a
No,
one-time
you could,
screening?
that was like a one-time screening for his friends and like
because
a
it's
movie
illegal,
theater.
pretty much.
Yeah,
It's
I was
it's
saying
unsanctioned.
super
you'd have to
illegal.
get. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not allowed. So wait, he took 3 movies and consolidated them into one.
Into 2.5 hour
Wow.
Star Wars movie.
Wow.
Now I really want to watch
I
a
was
new
gonna
Star
say,
Wars
that's-
movie. See, I didn't think
Holy
I'd come
cow.
off of the because the Rey character, right? I mean, I know people are excited about these movies still, but that felt to me like they were going to do this wonderful thing where she develops over the course of 3 films. I was ready. I was so ready for that. And then here's her goth emo brother, who's a total dipshit. And I mean, I love him as an actor, but I felt like that role was not like he just couldn't do it the way that he can do things, because
Yeah.
it was like cramped and weird and vengeful and I hate my parents and like it was just kind of, oh man, I don't know.
I mean, at the end of the day, I always feel like with a franchise like this, I mean, Marvel has it a little bit now to a degree as well. It's like there's so much behind it and there's so much money and future property value at stake that the amount of mingling of meddling, I should say, the amount of meddling
Right.
in the project from executives and higher ups at the studio must be off the charts.
It must be impossible to
It must just
complete
be,
it.
and that's why it ends with. I mean, now we're really just full of Star Wars talk, which is fine.
I want to throw one fact out when you're done, by the way. I learned a little bit more with this
It's
Topher
just,
Grace
and I
thing.
think George Lucas dealt with this as well, even though it was his own property. That still doesn't matter. Like the pressure to make it have mass appeal to every single person who can see it often leads to something that everyone feels meh about.
Like the Suicide Squad movie.
There's exactly.
It's incoherently interfered with.
You get something at the end where everyone's just like, okay, that's fine. Like it didn't move me, but it didn't offend me. So I guess that's okay.
You also wonder like why certain directors get like way more free reign, like because I watch, you watch the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, or even bringing up Suicide Squad, James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie, and it feels like James Gunn has hit this level where no one is going to be able to tell him, no, you can't do that, and he gets to do these like really fucking out there weird movies.
Yeah.
Where then you bring in someone else to do like a Thor movie, and it feels like they're being micromanaged every single step of the way to hit like specific story beats.
Yeah.
I think that's probably about relationships.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's like somebody in the ivory tower somewhere is like, nobody touches my boy Gunn.
Yeah.
Right?
It could be,
and
yeah.
that's it. And the word comes down and it's just like one of those like, don't get in on, don't go to that set, like you're going to lose your job. You're going to piss people off if you go to that set,
Look, I take a ton of pride in the fact that a guy who cut his teeth working on trauma movies for 10 years is somehow the most powerful filmmaker in Hollywood right now. Makes me so happy.
Call it a win.
Absolutely. I'm not sure how true this is. I heard from someone that on the first Guardians movie, they kind of let him have free reign because Marvel had very modest hopes for that at best.
They were
Because it was an
distracted.
obscure franchise, and they were like, no one knows these characters, no one knows what to expect, so we can let this guy do his thing because it's not Spider-Man. No one has preconceived, no one has an idea in their head already about who these people are. So just let him do his own thing with it. And then it was so successful that then it was like, well, this is what you got when you left me alone, so continue leaving me alone, please and thank you.
Yeah. So one thing I just pulled up, it was in 2012, Topher Grace re-edited the Star Wars prequels trilogy.
I can't believe this fact. This
into
is
an
blowing my mind.
85-minute long movie that he titled Star Wars Episode 3.5: The Editor Strikes Back. It was shown
It was only
to select-
85 minutes long?
And then in 2018, he created his own edit of The Hobbit, consolidating that into a singular movie. He said that this is how he relaxes when he's on movie sets.
He's just doing fan edits of movies. That
He's
is
just
like
out there
the most
writing
adorably-
billion-dollar wrongs for himself.
That's the most adorably dorky thing I think I've ever heard for someone like at his, like, that's crazy.
Apparently, also in 2014, he did a recut of Boogie Nights that strictly focused on reconstructing the fake movie that they were making.
Oh my God.
I want to know about their album from Boogie Nights.
That's wild. That's like just someone with more resources doing that. That's the equivalent of him being like, yeah, when I'm not working on set, I write Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan fiction.
Fan fiction, yeah. But I kind of, that endeared me to Topher Grace more than I've ever been endeared to Topher Grace. Like I was like, this guy seems pretty all right.
Seems pretty all right.
That's all fantastic. It just reinforces my original endearment moment for him was he was in a movie called Traffic with Michael Douglas.
Yes, I remember that.
And he has these like diatribes in that movie that are fucking great.
I also just thought that this was really funny and interesting, but I Googled Yoda lyrics, and I'm not sure if you also have this on your printed out sheet, but the Google lyrics also have what seems to be a speech he gives after a live performance one time that says, "No, but seriously, folks, we'd like to do a medley of every song ever written in the history of the world, and I hope you're not too busy tonight. This medley is about songs. This medley of songs is about one of our favorite subjects, food, and we'd like to start off with a fabulous food melody today that contains a little sneak preview for you, the upcoming soundtrack to the motion picture Rocky 13. So I guess at some point during a live set, he played Yoda and then went into the Rye or the Kaiser. But the fact that that's what shows up on Google is
that's
insane
funny, yeah.
to me.
I didn't see that either, but yeah, that's great. Another example of him calling correctly the endless cycle of the same franchise. Yeah. His joke song about Rocky 13, which we said in that episode, is like, chronologically, we're probably approaching Rocky 13. I don't know. I'd have to look at the numbers, but they stopped counting at one point because it gets embarrassing.
I think I saw up to 5. And then the new Rocky movies, one of them I saw on a plane, and it was really good.
I heard it was
good.
good.
I keep hearing they're really good. I have not watched anything past 5 as well, but I'm told that all of the new ones are way better than 5, which, I mean, what a high bar.
Well, it's Apollo Creed's son. It's the story of Apollo Creed's son finding himself as a professional boxer, and he's taking some advice from his uncle Rocky, and it was a wholesome and endearing and inspiring continuance of the narrative of that series.
See, here's and I think I said this on our Rocky 13 episode, but like, I don't know, that doesn't endear me. Like, I would much rather watch Rocky 3 or Rocky 4 where he's got like a robot butler and like Mr. T showing up. Like, the more ridiculous that the Rocky movies are, the more invested I am.
Well, you have to separate like Rocky 1 and 2. For me, that's high art.
Yeah. Right. No, they're beautifully made. They're just not what I want to watch.
Beautiful movies. And I really liked that they became friends. And then what happens in Rocky 4 was really upsetting. I was invested. I was still of the age to be very emotionally invested in the Rocky franchise. You have to remember, you waited for these movies. You waited. Yeah. You had to wait. That was the only choice.
It wasn't like me watching it in a block of movies on USA one afternoon.
No, there was no binging. There was no worldwide streaming and theater like drop date or any of that stuff. It was like, and then like it came out and you could kiss the first weekend goodbye because like all the like older kids are waiting online for this movie.
Of course,
and you're just, even if you're online, you're getting kicked off of it or your tickets tooken or whatever,
and then you literally have to stay off of the internet because if it's a movie you really want to see, some asshole's gonna like take a picture of the closing scene and post it as their Facebook profile.
Pretty much,
be a dick. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the Yoda chant before we totally wrap this up, though, because this has become the most insane piece of, I think, the Yoda lore. And did you know that wasn't originally written for Yoda, Matt? Because I just learned that today.
I learned that today, that he originally did that in the middle of Another One Rides the Bus. Is that right?
Yeah, in 1991. But then pretty much after he did it, he was like, ooh, this is going into Yoda. This works. Matt and I have long known about the Yoda chant. You just learned about it today.
You heard it.
What are your initial thoughts?
I was just aghast. I was like, how is he remembering this?
I mean, all of them. And some of the, I mean, obviously just the rhythm and the amount to memorize in it is crazy, but the rhythmic accuracy, at random moments, they bust into these incredible 4-part harmonies Like it is
like Ladysmith, and
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and then they're back into this like goofy, like nonsense words
with full choreographed moves. Like
Yes.
they have a synchronized dance going.
And
as well.
to make it even more insane and crazy, generally speaking, every tour that they have done it, they add something. So it's gotten longer and longer and longer. I sent you a video from the tour in 2016 because that was the best like quality version of it I could find, but he's on
When
tour
did it
right
start?
now.
When
He's
did it
been doing
begin?
that since
1992.
1992.
Jeez.
In 2022, right now he is on the road, and it is longer still. He adds like a segment of The Lion Sleeps Tonight and a couple other just random. Like he just keeps building it up. I mean, it is minutes long at this point.
I love hearing, like, as a diehard Disney park fan, just hearing them do the Grim Grinning Ghost part for like even 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like fills my soul. And then they go into the Trashman Surfbird Papa Uma Mal part. Like it's so insane how much they're jumping around the entire palette of musical history, which I'm waiting for the next Wheatus tour where you guys do this right before the 2 tickets to Iron Maiden baby line.
To bring it back home, we like, you know, Wheatus, Matthew may have told you or not that we load our own gear and set up our own stage and everything.
Yeah.
We break it down, pack the trailer. It's all us. It's all me. It's all Matthew. And you know, we work pretty hard. Watching that, I realized that we don't work hard at all. I was like, maybe he doesn't have to set up his own accordion amplifier, but he obviously they have to meet on like a, you know, like few days a week just to make sure they still know how this goes. There's no way. I mean, like, I don't know how
that
the
is. I mean, that's extremely challenging. And another thing that I love so much that we keep coming back to is this thing that he does that I always think about, reminds me of like clearly influenced by people like Frank Zappa, where it's like it's funny, but also done in a way where you cannot deny how unbelievably talented everyone involved in it has to be. And adding the comedy to that amount of technical skill and mastery makes it disarming in this completely different way. Like there's no pretension to it, and yet it's just mind-blowingly impressive to see.
chops. Just
If you
chops,
told me that
like,
the 4 of them have a Zoom meeting every day where they just do the Yoda chant and then
Maybe
log
they-
off, I'd be like, yeah.
well, what if they meet for like a private, like, Weird Al yoga class, where that's the chant during the entire 2 hours,
just
and
keep
they
doing it,
always
looping
like they might have like a much longer version that they're just waiting to unfold, you know, to drop on the world, but they've been working this as part of their daily exercise routine for their entire lives. That would work. That would work.
It is really insane. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that this is one of the only songs where he does do something a little different than the recorded version, because the recorded version doesn't have the accordion, but he breaks out the accordion when they play this live, and I think it's better with the accordion. I'm almost bummed that in 1985 he was so focused on like, we cannot change the song from the way that it was recorded, because the accordion sounds great.
I love
with
the
this
live
song.
version of this because I think it's that hybrid of the two, right? We were saying, like, if this song had wound up on his first record, if he had gotten the permission...
Oh, the accordion would have been there.
The accordion
and
would
it
have been there.
fast.
On the first record, he was not as focused on sound-alike. Like, he does flawless sound-alike recordings now. And ever since the first record, that's basically what he has done. And on the recording of Yoda, it is the band doing a fantastic impression of the Kinks' original track. But live, it has a lot of that album one energy, where it's just the accordion, and it's so much more like, it's got this very like rock and roll, you know, aesthetic to it. With the, I love it with the accordion. I totally agree.
I'll have to put a clip in here from the demo, but I'm not sure if you caught this when you were listening to the demo. I was listening to it today before we record it, and the tempo is all over the place on that demo. Like there are parts that are so bizarrely fast, and then mid-line slow down.
Yeah, I have to chalk that up to him being young and still
and
learning.
in a bathroom
because he's
recording
alone.
it.
When you're playing alone to no one, you can change tempo and no one's gonna yell at you. So then you're with a band later and they're like, Al, what are you doing? You gotta
so it is often the case that if you're in a hotel room and you wake up and this song is in your head, you have to just blurt it out, and it would have been a little tape recorder or a dictaphone back then, or maybe his 4-track, whatever. But tempo is like at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, it
of
was so
concerns.
unimportant.
Like
So unimportant.
it's like we will work that out with the drummer later.
Yeah,
but
that
for
is-
now, I gotta get this rhyme out of my head and make sure that this cadence this syllabic separation that I've just come up with is gonna work. But back to the accordion for a second, and the doing renditions of songs in sound-alike fashion. Wheatus, actually, we do that. That's one of our favorite things to do, is to try and match sounds.
Generally
if it's a
speaking,
Rush
if we do a
song
cover,
or,
we
or an
really try to
AC/DC song.
match.
And we did this series of where we found out just how difficult that actually is. We did a Wilson Phillips track and a song by The Darkness, and
Matt has talked on a different podcast, One Hit Thunder, that I do with Chris Fafalios, about how hard you found doing Bop by Hanson shocked you.
For me, I was like, holy shit, I don't know how to play music at all. What has this song has revealed? Finally, I am exposed for the fraud that I am. I mean, it was and Matthew was getting frustrated with me, right?
Well, I felt like we all became oddly frustrated because it was we thought it was going to be such a quick, let's just do this and we'll move on. And it took a long time.
Fucking broke me,
all of us were
man.
like, why is this so hard? What is
Broke
happening
me
right
too.
now?
And I'm capable of note perfect renditions of The Trees by Rush. And, one time the entire And Justice for All record by Metallica, I knew every note of both guitar parts, but that one, Bop, unraveled me in a way that was supernatural. But back to the accordion. So on that live version, he's playing Dave Davies' leads.
Yeah.
Those sort of,
accordion,
all of those funky sort of high on the neck leads. So this is coming from both ends. So we are in the future sometime going to be releasing a Kinks cover. Without going into how, we actually wound up talking to Dave Davies a few times about things, about the song that we did and about a few other things. And one of the things I actually got to talk to him about was what equipment he used on Lola, the recording gear, the amplifier. And he told me it was a PV Mace, which is an early one, PV before they were a popular company at all. They were putting out tube amps, and now they make Eddie Van Halen's amplifier line and his guitar line, but back then they were kind of an unknown company, and he took a chance on this amp called a PV Mace. And I think that has a heavy contribution to the way that the song feels timeless. Those guitar takes on that record that guitar sound was never on another record. That'll be the second time that Dave accomplished something like that. But Al doing these guitar licks, these iconic guitar licks on an accordion, it totally works because there is a relationship between accordion and guitar that is in the sort of tonality of it, the way that I guess we'd say the timbre or whatever, the sort of vibe of the frequencies that come out of both instruments is they're shooting for a similar target. And we did a song with MC Lars that Al wound up playing accordion on, a song called True Player for Real. And he kind of expressed reservations about I'm not sure what to play, and Lars was like, please play your accordion on this. So luckily he whipped out the accordion and did this doubling layer of my really thick Wheatus-y guitars on it. And the only other person I know who knows that sort of trick is Gil Norton, who produced the Pixies and Foo Fighters and stuff. And I think one of his deals, I haven't confirmed this, but he usually puts this sort of Moog synthesizer that mimics an accordion tone as a layer in the guitar tracks. So there's this extra reedy kind of feel to that's the tuning of an accordion is so precise and sort of vibrant. And the fact that Al knows how to play Dave's licks on that accordion doesn't surprise me at all, because it's this. There's a marriage of those two instruments that is totally reasonable and possible, and it works like a motherfucker on that live recording.
It sounds so good. I really do think that's the only strike as we get into rankings. That is, if there's any strike against Yoda, it is the absence of an accordion on it. But I mean, I'll say right now, I'm putting this at the top of my list for best parody right now. This This is so good. And this is one of those ones where, you know, for a while the top has been, I mean, I'm the guy who had Ricky as his number one for almost an album and a half because I love that song so much. But this is one of those ones where it's like, what is going to take down Yoda over these next couple albums? And I think Yoda is going to have a nice place for at least until we get into 2023 episodes. I don't see Yoda coming down that hill.
Matthew and I have discussed this. The only one that I would say tops it would be a Weird Al original, and for me, that could only be Mellow When I'm Dead.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only one.
The original. At this point, my greatest regret on this entire podcast is that we didn't have you on to talk about I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead, which Matt and I did on our own. Maybe we'll do a retrospective episode at some point about that.
Which, controversially, while I like that song, I liked Checks in the Mail more because there's something I love about...
That's just an insane
I love
thing to
something
say
about like a Paul Williams-inspired song about how corrupt the record companies are.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like that track, but that's remains a very hot take.
I love how as an aside, I love how whenever Al sings about the record business, which he touches on here and there.
That first record a lot.
Yeah, he has this sort of like, I know this is really boring, but like tone to his voice, where he's like, oh boy, we're talking about these assholes again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, I am also putting Yoda at number one of my parodies. I don't know how to not do that. I had Like a Surgeon at number one, and I'm bumping this above. This is, I agree with you, Matt. I mean, there will be definitely competition for the top spot here, but I think I don't
think it's on Polka Party.
It might not be on Polka Party. Spoilers for Polka Party. It's only okay. No, this is really, really good. And again, this is like, this is the top. This is top tier Al. Even by the time we get to the end, there's no way this is not going to be. This ranks very, very high.
Yeah. Agreed.
And Brendan, you get to do some ranking too. We have our guest rankings. Anytime a guest comes on the show, they can rank it against other songs that guests have talked about.
When I think about your list, the only thing that keeps hitting me in the head is I'd rather clean all the bathrooms in Grand Central Station with my tongue.
One more minute? Yeah.
Right. And that line for me, I mean, I have thought that as an adult while talking to somebody I don't like that. Like I have that is running in my head when I'm like having to listen to something that's just total bullshit.
Where do you want to put Yoda amongst that list? Is it going straight to the top? Is it
okay? If the originals were excluded from that list, I would put Yoda at the top.
Okay.
If they weren't, I would put it as a very close second to
One More Minute.
So I think that's what we're doing. I think we're putting it just below One More Minute, which I think is a very respectable place for Yoda, honestly. I think I might have done the same thing.
Yeah. And without Slime Creatures or Frump in the mix, we're left no other option.
Yeah. And Matt, I've got some very uncomfortable news for you to know right now.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
But I'm looking at our rankings, and right now we have the same number one for Best Parody. We have the same number one for Best Original. We have the same number one for Best Music Video. We have the same number one for Best Polka, and we have the same number one for Best Album.
Okay, well, to be fair, we've only done one polka. So
I'm just saying,
we are both tied at number one for the one song we've talked about.
But for how much we often disagree and how uncomfortable it is when we agree on something,
I think this is the first time in the show that we have been on the same. We have been the same across the board in every category. I think this is the first time.
I don't want to play a hand too early, but this weekend I was casually listening to Even Worse in my car.
Sure.
And
as you do, one does.
There are more heavy hitters on that album than I remember from the original song's front of things.
Oh yeah.
So,
no, there's a lot. We have still barely scratched the surface. We have a lot to talk about.
Well, before we fully sign off, Brendan, is there anything you want to promote? Are you currently singing in any bands or a giant TikTok trend on the internet or anything?
I would like to promote our new TikTok single, Teenage Dirtbag. And
sped up version,
brand new,
please.
just dropped. Really excited about this one. I think it's going to be, a thing. At the time that this airs, we'll already be on tour. So come to see us live on this tour that we're on, Wheatus.com/shows. Visit me on Twitter if you can bear Twitter. If you're one of those people who has the armor for Twitter. Otherwise, there are other nicer places that we hang out on TikTok and Instagram. Our Instagram is fun.
Yes.
Nothing but fun times. And I don't know, Matthew, do you still do the Facebook? I don't know what happened.
We still do our Facebook as well, yeah. Facebook.com/Wheatus.
Are we called Metis on
yes.
that or something?
I'm going to say this as well,
And
Matt.
it's all pictures of people we bumped into.
I'm going to say this, and I think this is okay to leave in, but I might ask you to cut it out because I think that at the time this runs, we will have announced the Kinks track, Brennan. So I'm going to say, I think it might even be out. But
this is going to be the last episode we release before Halloween.
I just saw on the list. It's the end of October, and I think we're announcing right before the tour starts. We recorded a cover of the Kinks song Starstruck that is coming out as part of a compilation of all Kinks covers and is going to have its own 7-inch single release that will be available through us and through Wicked Opossum Records. So you can check our social medias and stuff for that as well. Lola was already taken when they asked us to do this. Otherwise, it probably would have been a strong contender, honestly. We've talked about how much we love this song for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we incorrectly said Slime Creatures is next week. We'll see if Slime Creatures is next week because Matt has it in his head that we can get a full episode out of George of the Jungle. So stay tuned and see if that is the case or not.
I really feel good about George of the Jungle. Matt thinks that we're going to talk about it for 2 seconds and then have to move on, and I think that I have a lot to say about George of the Jungle.
Watch out for that tree.
Cryptors creak and the tombstones quake. Spooks come up for swing and wake. Happy haunts materialize and begin to vocalize. Grim ghosts come out to socialize. Fairy jackal, door 19 and door 19 and door 19 and door 19 and then the dark goes in the dark. Clap a blood of it today and then make the soul Friday. Oh, he's so Friday, fell off your target and then you clap a blood. Oh, boom, boom, like a boom, 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 like a boom, boom. Crimpy, now, crimpy, that's it, now, crimpy, boing, ding, bong, bong, ting, crimpy, ding, pong, ho, e, ho, e, ho, e, jack, 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 jack,
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.